At 31, I finally had the kind of quiet life you cannot buy with apologies. I paid my own rent, managed my own grief, and kept 200 miles of silence between me and the parents who cut me off in the name of independence. Then the letter arrived. It was on thick, cream-colored stationery, congratulating me for being an inspiring success story, funded by the very people who had watched me drown. The rain in Bishop Falls always felt cleaner than the rain back home. Here, the water washed the dust off the pine needles and slicked the asphalt of the logging roads into black mirrors. It did not smell like wet mulch and stagnation. It smelled like cold air and distance. I liked the distance. I had spent 9 years building a fortress out of silence and geographical miles. And at 31, I finally felt safe behind the walls. My apartment was a second-floor walk-up with a view of the river if you craned your neck at the right angle from the kitchen window. It was not luxurious, but it was mine. Every piece of furniture, from the gray linen sofa to the heavy oak bookshelf, I had bought with money I earned. There were no strings attached to the rug, no hidden debts in the coffee maker. I worked as a project manager at Northridge Logistics, a job that required obsession with detail and zero emotional vulnerability. It suited me. I spent my days tracking shipping containers and optimizing routes, ensuring that things got from point A to point B without drama. My life was the same way. Linear, predictable, solvent. That was why the letter sitting on my counter felt like a bomb threat. It had arrived in the afternoon mail, sandwiched between a utility bill and a flyer for a pizza place. The envelope was thick, cream-colored, with a texture that whispered money. The return address was embossed in gold leaf. The Briarwood Community Foundation. I did not know a Briarwood. I did not subscribe to community foundations. My charitable giving was limited to the local animal shelter and the library, and I certainly did not get on mailing lists for gold-embossed stationery. I slit the envelope open with a paring knife. Inside was a formal letter and a glossy trifold brochure. Dear Ms. Hughes, on behalf of the Briarwood Community Foundation, it is my distinct honor to congratulate you on being selected as one of our inspiring first-generation success stories for the upcoming fiscal year. Your journey from familial hardship to professional stability is exactly the kind of resilience our Resilience Fund seeks to highlight. I stopped reading. The coffee in my mug had gone cold, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Familial hardship, resilience. I flipped the page. We are thrilled to invite you to speak at our annual donor gala in Renford next month, where we will be showcasing the impact of the Student Resilience Fund. Enclosed is a copy of the program draft, featuring your story. My hands were not shaking. I made sure of that. I set the letter down on the laminate counter and picked up the brochure. It was high-quality print, smelling of fresh ink. On the front cover was a stock photo of a diverse group of graduates throwing caps in the air. I opened it. There, on the second panel, was my face. It was an old photo, pulled from a Facebook account I had deleted 5 years ago. I looked young, maybe 22, with dark circles under my eyes and a forced smile. Underneath my photo was a paragraph of text that made the breath catch in my throat. Alice Hughes chose a difficult path, rejecting family support to forge her own way. She struggled with the reckless independence of youth, but through the tough love of her parents, Marilyn and David Hughes, founding donors of the Resilience Fund, Alice learned the value of hard work. Today, she is a successful project manager, proving that sometimes saying no is the greatest gift a parent can give. We are proud to have supported the structures that allowed her to earn her forgiveness and her future. I read it twice, then a third time. Reckless independence earned her forgiveness. My parents were listed as founding donors. I put the brochure down. I walked to the window and looked at the river. I breathed in for 4 counts and out for 4 counts. Then I picked up my phone and dialed the number at the bottom of the letterhead. It rang 3 times before a bright, professional voice answered. Briarwood Community Foundation. This is Sarah speaking. How can I help you change the world today? This is Alice Hughes, I said. My voice was level. The project manager voice I used when a truck was 3 days late. I received a letter from you today. Oh, Ms. Hughes! The warmth in her voice dialed up to an 11. It is so wonderful to hear from you. We were just speaking with your mother yesterday. She is so excited about the gala. I did not apply for this. I said, I did not consent to be featured in your brochure, and I certainly did not consent to you using my photo. There was a pause on the line. The sound of typing. Well, technically, the submission came through the donor portal. Your parents, Marilyn and David, are platinum tier supporters of the Student Resilience Fund. They submitted the origin story as part of their impact testimony. It is quite standard for our legacy donors to highlight family success. Legacy donors. I repeated, yes. The Hughes family has been instrumental in our shift toward character-building grants over the last decade. My parents, I said, spacing the words out so there could be no mistake, refused to co-sign my student loans because they said they did not have the credit score. They told me they could not afford $500 for books. Sarah laughed. A light, nervous tinkling sound. Oh, that is the power of the narrative, is it not? The tough love angle. Your father was very specific about the phrasing. He said it was important to show that financial enablement cripples young adults, that you had to hit rock bottom to appreciate the climb. I felt a physical pain in my chest, a sharp, twisting knot right behind my sternum. Rock bottom. I whispered. Exactly, Sarah said, oblivious. And look at you now. A success. We really hope you can come to the gala. It would mean so much to the board to see the living proof of the program's philosophy. Remove my name, I said. Remove my photo. If you print one more of those brochures, I will contact a lawyer, Ms. Hughes. Now, I said. I hung up. I stood in my kitchen, the silence of the apartment suddenly feeling less like a fortress and more like a vacuum. They were donors, platinum tier. 9 years ago, I had sat at their kitchen table, begging for help. I had been accepted to a state university, a good one. I had a partial scholarship, but I needed help with the rest. I needed them to fill out the FAFSA. I needed a co-signer. I needed parents. My father had looked at me over the rim of his coffee mug and said, Alice, we are doing this for you. If we make it easy, you will never learn to stand on your own 2 feet. We are broke. Anyway, the business is tight. We just cannot carry you. I had believed them. I had believed them when they said they were broke. I had believed them when they said it was about money. I ended up at community college, working the graveyard shift at a diner to pay rent on a room with black mold in the bathroom. I took 6 years to finish a 4-year degree. I aged a decade in those 6 years. I was tired. I was always tired. And while I was scrubbing grills at 3 a.m, they were donating to a resilience fund? My phone buzzed on the counter. I stared at it. It was a number I did not have saved. But the area code was Renford, 503. I let it ring. It went to voicemail. 2 minutes later, it rang again. Same number. I picked it up. Hello? Alice? The voice was thin, reedy. It took me a second to place it, because I had not heard it in 3 years. Mom? Oh, thank God, she said. She sounded like she had been crying, or was about to start. I did not think you would answer. I know it has been a long time. Why are you calling? I asked. I did not want to ask. I wanted to hang up, but the brochure was still sitting on the counter, staring at me with my own dead eyes. It is your father, she said. He had a scare. Yesterday. His heart. My grip on the phone tightened. Is he in the hospital? He is home now, she said quickly, but the doctor said it was a warning shot. High blood pressure. Stress. It was a TIA, a mini-stroke. I felt nothing. That scared me more than the anger. I waited for the surge of concern, the daughterly panic, but it did not come. All I felt was a cold calculation. I am sorry to hear that. Alice, please, she said. He is just sitting in his chair, staring at the wall. He keeps asking about you. We need you to come home, just for a weekend. Please, we want to see you. We want to fix things. Fix things, I said. Like the brochure? What? The Briarwood Foundation? I said, "The success story. The one where I was reckless and you saved me with your checkbook." There was a silence on the other end, a long, heavy silence. Then she spoke, her voice dropping to a whisper. "We can explain that. It is complicated. But please, Alice, do not let that be the reason you do not come. He is scared. I am scared. Just one weekend. If you come, we can talk about everything. We can clear the air." I looked at the brochure. Earned forgiveness. I did not want forgiveness. I wanted answers. I wanted to know how two people who claimed they could barely keep the lights on had become platinum donors. I wanted to know why my suffering had been packaged into a marketing campaign. "I will think about it," I said. "Alice," I hung up. I called Tessa immediately. Tessa Morant was the only person from my past I still spoke to. We had survived the diner shifts together. She had held my hair back while I threw up from exhaustion-induced migraines, and I had loaned her rent money when her car broke down. She was the one who taught me that family is a verb, not a noun. Do not do it. She said the moment I told her, "Absolutely not. It is a trap." He had a mini-stroke. "Tess." "So?" Tessa's voice was tinny through the speaker. "That does not erase the last decade. Remember the independence speech? Remember when you had pneumonia and asked them for $50 for antibiotics and they told you to put garlic in your socks?" "I remember." I said, "They want something." She said, "They do not reach out after 3 years just because they miss you. And this brochure thing? Alice, that is sick. That is rewriting history to make themselves look like saints. If you go back there, you are walking into a play they have already written. I need to see it." I said, "I need to know if it is true. The donation, the fund. Why? Because if they had the money all along," I said, "and they watched me drown just to prove a point, I need to know that. I need to look them in the face and know it." Tessa sighed. I could hear her lighting a cigarette on her porch. "You are going to get hurt. I am already hurt," I said. "Now I am just curious." "Fine," she said. "But rules, hard rules. Give them to me. 1 weekend." She listed, "You stay in a hotel. Do not sleep under their roof. Do not eat their food if you can help it. Do not let them buy you anything. And do not promise them a single thing. You are a ghost. Alice, you float in. You see the truth. You float out. A hotel." I agreed. 2 days, no promises. "And take your own car," she added, "so you can leave the second it gets weird." "Because it will get weird. It is already weird," I said. The drive to Renford took 4 hours. I left Bishop Falls on Friday morning, taking a personal day from work. The sky was gray and heavy, threatening snow over the pass. I drove my Honda Civic, a reliable car with a dent in the rear bumper, listening to a podcast about forensic accounting just to keep my brain from eating itself. As the miles ticked down, the landscape changed. The tall, dense firs of the mountains gave way to the rolling, manicured hills of the valley. Renford was a town that pretended to be a city. It had a historic downtown with boutique coffee shops and a sprawling suburbia that ate up the farmland at the edges. I exited the highway and my stomach turned over. I knew these roads. I knew the exact pothole on Miller Avenue. I knew which stoplight took too long to change. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I was 22 again. I was sitting in the passenger seat of my father's old truck. He was driving me to the bus station because they refused to drive me all the way to the city. "It is for the best." "Alice," he had said, staring straight ahead, "Evan needs the focus right now. He is fragile. Your brother needs a fresh start." Evan, my younger brother. He had been caught selling Adderall in the high school parking lot. He had crashed a car. He had failed 3 classes. And yet, for Evan, there was money. There was a fresh start. They paid for a private rehab facility. They paid for a specialized tutoring program. They paid for his apartment near the community college because dorms are too distracting. Why him and not me? I had asked, crying, humiliating myself. I did everything right. I got the grades. I got into the school. "You are strong," my mother had said from the back seat. "Evan is not. Hardship will build your character." Alice, it will break him. We have to prioritize. Build character. I turned onto Oak Creek Drive. I expected the house to look the same. In my memory, it was a beige ranch-style house with peeling paint and a lawn that was always half dead because my father refused to water it. It was the house of people who were struggling. That was the narrative. We were house poor. We were barely scraping by. I slowed the car and nearly stopped in the middle of the street. The house was there, but it was not the house I remembered. The beige siding was gone, replaced by crisp, navy blue hardy plank. The roof was new, architectural shingles in a dark charcoal. The driveway was paved with pavers, not cracked concrete. And the lawn was emerald green, manicured, with tasteful landscaping beds filled with ornamental grasses and hydrangeas. It looked like a model home. I pulled into the driveway next to a gleaming white SUV. It was a luxury model, the kind with leather seats and heated steering wheels. The license plate frame said Renford Country Club. I sat in my car for a full minute. The engine ticked as it cooled. They had cried poor. They had told me they were eating rice and beans so they could pay the mortgage. I looked at the roof. That was a $20,000 roof. I got out of the car. I did not take my bag. I was staying at the Best Western on the highway, just as Tessa ordered. I walked up the walkway. Noticing the new stone steps, I rang the doorbell. It was a Ring camera, of course. The door opened before the chime finished. My mother stood there. She looked older, her hair thinner and dyed a stiff, unnatural blonde, but she was dressed in a cashmere cardigan and tailored slacks. She smelled like expensive perfume. Alice. She breathed. She reached for me. I stiffened, letting her hug me but not hugging back. Her arms felt frail, but her grip was tight. "You came," she whispered. David, she is here." She pulled me inside. The interior was unrecognizable. The wall between the kitchen and the living room was gone. It was an open-concept space now, with recessed lighting and wide plank hardwood floors. The kitchen, my God, the kitchen, it was massive, an island the size of a boat, topped with white marble with gray veining, stainless steel appliances that looked like they belonged in a restaurant. My father was sitting at the head of a long, farmhouse dining table. He stood up slowly. He looked gray, a little slower than I remembered. But he was not the invalid I had pictured. He was wearing a polo shirt tucked into khakis. "Alice," he said. His voice was raspy. "Good to see you." "Hello, Dad," I said. I stayed near the door. "Nice house." He glanced around. A flicker of something. Pride? Guilt? Crossing his face. "Oh, well, we had to do some work. Termites. Once you open the walls, you know how it is. Termites," I said flatly. "Must have been a big infestation to require a marble island." My mother laughed nervously. "Come, sit. I made a roast. Your favorite." I sat. The table was set with heavy ceramic plates and cloth napkins. There was a bottle of red wine breathing in a decanter. The dinner was surreal. They asked me about the weather in Bishop Falls. They asked about my car. They asked if I was seeing anyone. They did not ask about my job. They did not ask how I had paid off my loans. They acted as if I had just popped over from the next town, not returned from a 9-year exile. My father ate slowly, his hand trembling slightly with the fork. That part, at least, seemed real. "We are just so glad you are doing well," my mother said, pouring wine I had refused to drink. "We worry about you." "You don't have to." I said, "I am independent. Isn't that what you wanted?" My father set his fork down. "We wanted you to be capable, Alice. And look at you. You survived. I survived. I agreed. I work 60 hours a week. I have a credit score of 800. I assume that is the forgiveness the brochure mentioned?" The air left the room. My father looked at my mother. My mother looked at her plate. "We didn't mean for you to see that so soon." My father muttered. "So soon?" I asked. "You mean before the gala?" He blinked. "Well, yes. We wanted to explain the context before the event. It is a storytelling device. Alice, You have to understand how fundraising works. People want a journey. They want a hero. And I am the hero? I asked. Or are you the heroes for cutting me off? We didn't cut you off, my mother protested, her voice rising. We launched you. And look, it worked. You are successful. And because of our contribution, the foundation can help other kids who need a push. Contribution, I said. I looked around the kitchen. You have a $60,000 kitchen. You have a new car in the driveway, and you are platinum donors. How much did you give them? Dad? That is private, he said stiffly. How much? It is a tax strategy, he snapped. The mask of the frail invalid slipped for a second, revealing the rigid patriarch underneath. It is complicated. You wouldn't understand the finances. I am a project manager. I said, I manage budgets in the millions. Try me. It was an endowment, my mother interjected quickly, trying to smooth the water. A legacy gift, to honor the family name, to honor the name. I repeated, the name you told me was worth nothing when I needed tuition. We were liquidating assets. My father said, it was a different time. It was 9 years ago. I said, not 90. My father sighed, rubbing his temples. Alice, please, my blood pressure. We invited you here to make peace, to share this honor with you. The foundation is very excited to have you speak. I froze. Speak? Yes, he said. He looked up, his eyes guileless, as if he genuinely did not understand the problem. At the gala, just a few words, about grit, about how you pulled yourself up. It would mean the world to your mother. She has already bought a table for her bridge club. They had bought a table. I looked at them, really looked at them. They were not malicious cartoon villains. They were my parents. They looked warm. They looked hopeful. They looked at me with a terrifying mix of pride and ownership, as if I were a prize heifer they had raised for the county fair. They had scripted the whole thing. They expected me to come home, see the nice house, feel grateful for the invitation, and stand up on a stage to validate their parenting choices so they could look good in front of their country club friends. They had no idea who I was. I am not speaking, I said quietly. Oh, don't be like that, my mother said, waving her hand. You are just nervous. We wrote a draft for you. You can just read it. You wrote a draft. I said, just bullet points. She smiled. To keep it on message. About resilience. I stood up. I couldn't breathe in the renovated air. It smelled like roast chicken and lies. I am going to my hotel, I said. Hotel? My mother looked stricken, but we made up the guest room. New sheets. I am staying at the Best Western. I said, I will see you tomorrow. Alice, sit down, my father commanded. It was the voice he used when I was 12. No, I said, I am independent. Remember? I make my own choices. I walked out. I walked past the Marble Island, past the new SUV, and got into my dented Honda Civic. I drove to the hotel with my hands shaking so hard I could barely hold the wheel. I sat in the parking lot under the orange glow of the street lamp and breathed. They had money. They had always had money. And tomorrow, I was going to find out exactly where it came from. The red digital numbers of the alarm clock read 7 in the morning. I was staring at the popcorn ceiling of the Best Western, listening to the hum of the heater unit under the window. It smelled like industrial lemon cleaner and stale cigarettes, a smell that reminded me of my 20s so vividly, my stomach turned. I reached for my phone on the nightstand. The screen was bright in the dim room. I had a notification, a voicemail from an unknown number. I sat up, pulling the thin hotel duvet around my shoulders. I pressed play. Good morning, Ms. Hughes. This is Sarah from the Briarwood Foundation again. I just wanted to leave a quick message to say how thrilled the board is with the preliminary audio clip you sent over. It is just so raw and authentic. The part where you talk about the hunger of the empty pocket, chills. We are going to tease that snippet on our social channels today to drive ticket sales. Call me if you need anything. The message ended with a beep. I sat there, frozen. The hunger of the empty pocket. I had never said that. I had never recorded a clip. I had never sent them anything. I played the message again. Sarah sounded genuine. She sounded like a woman who had received a file, listened to it, and believed it was me, which meant someone was impersonating me. Or more likely, my parents had found an old recording, maybe a high school drama monologue, maybe a snippet from a home video, and spliced it to fit their narrative. I threw the duvet off. I showered in 3 minutes, dressed in the same jeans and blazer I had worn yesterday, and drove to my parents' house. The morning fog still clung to the manicured lawns of Oak Creek Drive. My parents' new SUV was in the driveway, damp with dew. I didn't knock this time. I used the key I had kept on my ring for 9 years, a small brass key that I had almost thrown away a dozen times. I unlocked the door and walked in. The house smelled of coffee and frying bacon. It was a domestic scene that would have looked charming in a magazine. My father was at the table reading a tablet. My mother was at the stove. They looked up as I entered. My mother smiled, a little too brightly. "Alice," she exclaimed, "you are here early. I was just making pancakes. Do you want blueberries or plain?" I held up my phone. "Who is the voice?" I asked. My father set his tablet down. He took a sip of his coffee. "Good morning to you too. Alice, Sarah from the foundation just left me a voicemail." I said, walking to the edge of the marble island. "She says she loves the audio clip I sent, the one about the hunger of the empty pocket," since I did not send it. And since I would never use a phrase that pretentious, I am assuming you two are behind it. My mother turned back to the stove, flipping a pancake with unnecessary concentration. "It is just a placeholder. Alice, a dramatization." "A dramatization?" I repeated. "It is fraud. You are telling donors I said things I never said. It captures the spirit of your journey." My father said. He stood up, hitching up his khakis. "We hired a voice actor to read the script we prepared. Just until you felt comfortable doing it yourself. We knew you would come around once you saw how important this is." "A voice actor?" I felt a laugh bubbling up in my throat. Hysterical and sharp. "You hired someone to impersonate me?" "To represent you," he corrected. "Alice, stop being so literal. This is fundraising. It is about emotion. That line, the hunger of the empty pocket, it tests very well with the older demographic. It makes them feel like their money is filling a void. It is a lie." I said, "My pockets were empty because you refused to help me, not because of some poetic destiny. You are being dramatic." My mother said, sliding a plate of pancakes onto the counter. "Eat something. You look pale. We are doing this for you. You know, when people search your name after the gala, they will see you as a survivor, a success. It will be good for your career. I am a project manager." I said, "I do not need a backstory. Everyone needs a backstory." My father said, "Now, sit down. We have a lot to go over before the weekend is out." I looked at the pancakes. They looked fluffy and perfect. I wanted to flip the plate onto the floor. "I am going to get coffee." I said, "Not here." "Alice, wait." My mother started. I turned and walked out. I could not be in that house. The air was too thin. I met Evan at the Juniper Street Cafe. It was a trendy spot downtown, the kind of place that served coffee in mason jars and charged $7 for toast. Evan was already there when I arrived. He was sitting at a corner table, scrolling through his phone. He looked good, expensive. He was wearing a Patagonia fleece vest and a watch that I knew cost more than my first car. He looked up as I approached. His face, usually soft and pliable, looked guarded. "Hey, Al," he said. I sat down opposite him. "Evan, you look intense," he said. "I feel intense." I said, "Mom and Dad hired a voice actor to pretend to be me for a charity gala." Evan winced. He put his phone down face up on the table. "Yeah, I saw the email thread about that. I told them it was a bad idea. You knew? I am on the CC line for the foundation updates." He said, shrugging, "I thought you knew too. I thought you signed off on it." "Why would I sign off on it?" I asked. "I haven't spoken to them in years. You know exactly why." Evan picked up his coffee. He didn't look at me. "Look, Alice, I know you are mad. You've always been mad. But they are just trying to fix things. In their own way. Fix things? I leaned forward. They are using me as a prop. Just like they used my independence as an excuse to save money. Evan set his cup down. He looked uncomfortable. It wasn't about saving money. Alice? Of course it was. I said, they were broke. They couldn't afford to send me to state. That is what they said. We cannot carry you. Evan looked around the cafe, checking if anyone was listening. Then he leaned in. They weren't broke. Al, they were never broke. I stared at him. What are you talking about? When I crashed the Corolla, Evan said quietly. Junior year, remember? Yeah, I said. You hit a parked car. I hit 2 parked cars, he said, and I had pills in the glove box. A lot of pills. I froze. You told me it was just a fender bender. It was a felony, Evan said. Or it would have been. But Dad made a call. He got me into that diversion program, the Youth Resilience Initiative. It was run by the foundation, the Briarwood Foundation. I felt a cold prickle on the back of my neck. So, Evan said. The program cost $40,000. It was a donation to the foundation. Dad wrote the check that night, and in exchange, the charges went away, and I got private tutoring to finish my diploma. They called it a scholarship, but it wasn't. It was a buy-in. $40,000. I sat back in my chair. When was this? 6 months before you graduated high school. Evan said. I did the math. 6 months before I graduated. 6 months before I sat at the kitchen table with my acceptance letter to state, and they told me there was no money. They had 40 grand for you, I whispered, to keep you out of jail. They called it a quiet bailout, Evan said, his voice miserable. Dad said we couldn't let one mistake ruin my life. He said I needed a safety net because I was, fragile, and I was strong. I said, my voice sounded hollow, yeah. Evan said, you were the strong one. You didn't need the net. That is what they always said. Alice can handle it. I looked at my brother. I saw the guilt in his eyes, but I also saw the comfort. He had been protected. He had been caught by the net, and I had been allowed to hit the concrete. I need to go. I said, Alice, wait, Evan said. Where are you going? I have to visit a teacher. I said, Linda Carver lived in a small bungalow on the edge of town, the kind of house that smelled of cat litter and dried lavender. She had been the guidance counselor at Renford High for 30 years. She was the one who had helped me fill out my applications. She was the one who had handed me tissues when the rejection letters came from the scholarships I thought I had in the bag. She opened the door in a floral house dress, her gray hair pulled back in a loose bun. Alice Hughes, she said, her eyes widening behind thick glasses. My goodness, it has been a decade, 13 years. I said, Can I come in? Mrs. Carver, I need to ask you about something. She ushered me into a living room cluttered with books and ceramic figurines. We sat on a velvet sofa that had seen better days. What brings you back? She asked. I saw your parents are being honored. I suppose you are here for that? Not exactly. I said, Mrs. Carver, do you remember the Crestline Scholars Program? Her smile faltered. Of course. The big one. Full ride. 4 years. I applied for it. I said, I remember writing the essays. I remember you telling me I was a top candidate, but I never got an interview. I never heard anything. I assumed I just wasn't good enough. Linda frowned. She shifted on the cushion. That always bothered me. She said, You were the valedictorian. You had the volunteer hours. You were exactly what they were looking for. Did they reject me? I asked. Linda looked at me for a long moment. Then she stood up. Wait here. She went into a back room. I heard the sound of a file cabinet opening, the slide of metal on metal. She came back 5 minutes later holding a yellowed manila folder. I kept a few files. She said, the ones that didn't sit right. I am retired, so I suppose I can show you this now. Who is going to fire me? She opened the folder and pulled out a sheet of paper. It was a printout of an email, dated April 14th of my senior year. Read the highlighted part, she said. I took the paper. It was a notification from the Crestline application portal. Subject: Application withdrawal. Hughes, Alice. Status: withdrawn by user. User ID: parent_guardian_a. access_04. Timestamp: 11:42 p.m. I read it again. Withdrawn by user. I called the technical support line the next day. Linda said softly, I thought it was a glitch. I knew you wouldn't withdraw. You needed that money. What did they say? I asked. They said the account was accessed using the primary guardian login. She said, your father's email address was the recovery contact. I called your house that night. I spoke to your father. My hands were shaking. What did he say? He told me you had changed your mind. Linda said, he said you had decided to go to community college to stay close to home. He said you were afraid to leave. I felt the blood drain from my face. Afraid to leave? He said you were having second thoughts. Linda continued, that you were too emotional to handle the pressure of a big university. He asked me not to bring it up with you because you were embarrassed about quitting. I stared at the paper, the timestamp, 11:42 p.m. I had been asleep, or studying, and downstairs, or in his office. My father had logged into my future and deleted it. He hadn't just refused to pay. He had actively destroyed my way out. He lied. I said, my voice was a whisper. I wanted to go. I had my bags packed in my head since I was 12. Linda reached out and patted my knee. Her hand was dry and warm. I suspected as much. Alice, but he was your father, and you were a minor. There was nothing I could do. Can I keep this? I asked, holding up the email. Take it, she said. It belongs to you. I sat in my car outside Linda's house for 20 minutes. I couldn't drive. I was shaking too hard. It wasn't passive. That was the thing I couldn't wrap my head around. Passive refusal. I understood. Selfishness I understood. But this? This was sabotage. This was clipping a bird's wings and then blaming it for not flying. Guardian access. He had logged in. He had clicked the button. He had deleted the application that would have given me a free education, a free life. Why? To keep me close? To save money? No, the scholarship was free. It wouldn't have cost them a dime. In fact, it would have saved them the argument, unless they needed me to fail. I started the car. I didn't go back to the house. I went to the public library. The Renford Public Library was a brutalist concrete block from the 70s. I went to the reference desk. I need to see the archives. I told the librarian, a young man with a nose ring, specifically, local newsletters and donor lists for the Briarwood Community Foundation. Going back 10 years, we have them digitized, he said. Station 4. I sat at the computer. I typed in Briarwood Community Foundation and Hughes. The search results populated the screen. 2016. Marilyn and David Hughes join Briarwood as silver partners. 2017. Hughes family contributes to the Youth Resilience Initiative. 2018. David Hughes named onto the Community Advisory Board. 2019. Hughes family upgrades to Gold Tier. They had been donating every year. Every single year I was scrubbing dishes and taking out student loans. They were writing checks to this foundation. I clicked on a link from a local blog. The Renford Watchman. It was an article from 2 years ago. Briarwood Foundation rebrands, amidst quiet controversy. I scanned the text. Questions raised regarding the allocation of restricted funds, rumors of preferential loan referrals for rejected scholarship applicants. Foundation denies all allegations of pay-to-play access. There was a mention of a Meriton Education Services. Briarwood partners exclusively with Meriton to handle financial gap analysis for students who do not qualify for direct grants. Meriton. I knew that name. It was on my loan documents. The private loan I took out when the federal aid wasn't enough. The loan with the 8% interest rate. I felt a sick thud in my stomach. My parents stopped me from getting a scholarship. The foundation rejected my subsequent application for aid. And then the foundation directed me to Meriton, and Meriton gave me a loan. I stood up. I felt dizzy. It was a loop. It was a closed system. I printed everything: the donor lists, the blog post, the timeline. I had to go back. It was 5 o'clock when I pulled into the driveway. The sun was setting, casting long orange shadows across the perfect lawn. I walked in with the folder from Linda Carver in my hand. My parents were in the living room. The TV was on. Low. They looked up, surprised to see me back so soon. "Alice," my mother said. Standing up, "We thought you were sulking at the hotel. I was doing research." I said. I threw the folder onto the coffee table. It slid across the glass surface and hit the vase of tulips. "What is this?" my father asked. He didn't pick it up. He looked at it like it was a snake. "It is a printout from Linda Carver." I said, "From 13 years ago. It shows that my application for the Crestline Scholarship didn't get lost. It was withdrawn by a user with Guardian access." The room went silent. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen. My father's face turned a mottled red. He didn't deny it. He didn't look confused. He looked angry. Linda Carver had no right to keep that. He said, "That is your response?" I asked. Not, "I am sorry"? Not, "Let me explain"? "You were not ready." He exploded. He slammed his hand down on the armrest of his chair. "You think you were, but you weren't. You were 18. You were flighty. You were going to go to that big school and get swallowed whole. You would have flunked out in a semester. I was valedictorian," I shouted. "I had a 4.0. "Book smarts," he sneered. "You had no street smarts. You had no grit. You were spoiled. Alice, we spoiled you. If we had let you go. Fully funded. Easy ride. You would have become useless." "Useless," I repeated. "So you sabotaged me to make me useful?" "We did what parents do," he yelled. "We protected you from yourself. We made sure you learned the value of $1. And look at you. You are independent. You are strong. You should be thanking us." "Thanking you?" I stared at him. "For stealing my life? For forcing me into debt?" "We kept you close," my mother said quietly. She was sitting on the edge of the sofa, twisting her rings. "Alice, we just wanted to keep you close. When Evan was in trouble, we couldn't lose you too. If you had gone to state, you never would have come back. So you clipped my wings." I said. "You trapped me. We grounded you." My father said. "And now you are part of a legacy. This foundation, it is going to help hundreds of kids learn the same lesson." "The lesson that their parents are liars?" I asked. "Watch your mouth," he warned. "Or what?" I asked. "You will delete my job? You will withdraw my car registration? You have no power over me anymore. I paid for my life, every single cent." I grabbed the folder off the table. "I am done." I said. "I am leaving. Do not contact me. Do not feature me in your gala. If I see my face on one more pamphlet, I will sue you for everything you are worth." "You can't prove damages," my father said, his voice dropping to a low, confident rumble. "It was a parental decision. You were a minor. I can prove fraud." I said, "I can prove you lied." I turned and walked toward the hallway. "Alice," my mother cried, "please, just stay for dinner. Let's talk this out calmly. There is nothing to talk about." I said. I walked down the hall to the guest room. I needed my bag. I had left my laptop charger in there when I stormed out earlier. I went into the room and closed the door. Leaning against it, I was shaking. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I stood there in the dark for a moment, trying to breathe. Then I heard their voices. They were arguing. They must have thought I had left the house. Or maybe they just didn't care anymore. "She knows too much," my mother's voice said. It was shrill, panicked. "David, she has the email. The email is nothing," my father said. His voice was muffled but audible through the thin drywall of the renovation. "It is ancient history. Who cares if I withdrew an application? I am her father. It is not just the application," she hissed. She went to the library. She was asking about the partners. If she digs into Meriton, if she finds the connection. "She won't," he said. She is just angry. She will cool off. She always does. She is not 18 anymore. David, my mother said. She is a project manager. She looks for patterns. If she finds the ledger, we are done. She won't find the ledger, he snapped. It is locked in the desk. Just calm down. We just need to get through the gala. Once the donor match comes in, we can cover the shortfall. The ledger, she repeated, her voice trembling. If she finds the ledger, we go to prison. David, I stopped breathing. Prison. I looked at the desk in the corner of the guest room. It was an old roll-top desk, one of the few pieces of furniture they hadn't replaced. It was the desk my father used to use for his bills. The ledger. They weren't just protecting their image. They weren't just hiding a parenting mistake. They were hiding a crime. I looked at the door. I could leave. I could get in my car and drive back to Bishop Falls and never look back. Or I could find out what was worth destroying your own daughter for. I stepped away from the door and looked at the desk. The lock looked old. Simple. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a bobby pin. You want to see what I learned from being independent? I thought, I learned how to pick a lock because I locked myself out of my apartment and couldn't afford a locksmith. I knelt in front of the desk. The bobby pin was a cheap piece of metal, stripped of its plastic coating on one end, but it was rigid enough. I had learned to pick locks on a bathroom door in a basement apartment in Portland when my roommate passed out and locked it from the inside. It was a skill born of desperation, not intrigue. I jiggled the pin in the keyhole of the roll-top desk. My parents' voices were still rising and falling in the kitchen, a rhythm of panic and reassurance. Click, the mechanism gave way with a soft, metallic sigh. I rolled the top back just enough to slide my hand inside. The desk was a chaos of paper. It smelled of cedar and old receipts. I rifled through the stacks, utility bills, car insurance policies, flyers for the country club. My father was a man who kept everything but organized nothing. Then I saw it. A stiff, dark green hanging folder at the very back, labeled in my mother's neat cursive script. Hughes family. Taxes. It was too thick to be just taxes. I pulled it out. It was heavy. I opened it on the floor, keeping my ears trained on the hallway. Inside, there were tax returns. Yes, but sandwiched between the 1040 forms from 5 years ago was a subfolder labeled Charitable Contributions/Meriton. I opened it. The first page was a letter on thick, glossy paper. Dear David and Marilyn, thank you for your continued partnership with Meriton Education Services. Your commitment to the Pathways to Excellence initiative has been noted. Enclosed is your benefit summary for the fiscal year 2014. Benefit summary? I flipped the page. It was a spreadsheet. Referral volume. Tier 2. Placement success. High. Donor status. Elevated to gold circle. Perk allocation. 2 gala tickets. Priority seating. Community champion plaque. And then, at the bottom, a line that made no sense. Yield spread, participation, waived. I frowned. Yield spread. That was a banking term. It referred to the profit a lender made on an interest rate. Why would an education service be waiving a yield spread for a donor? I dug deeper into the folder. There were receipts for donations to the Briarwood Community Foundation, each one for exactly $5,000, dated every January for the last 9 years. That was $45,000. $45,000. When I was 22, I had asked them for $2,000 to fix the transmission on my car so I could get to work. They had told me to take the bus. My hand touched a staple at the bottom of the stack. It was a brochure for Meriton Education Services, matching students to funding, bridging the gap between ambition and reality. It looked like a brochure for a prep school, full of smiling teenagers and ivy-covered walls. But the fine print on the back was dense. I took a picture of the brochure and the benefit summary with my phone. I shoved the papers back into the folder, returned the folder to the back of the file, and rolled the desk shut. I relocked it with a twist of the pin. I stood up. My knees were shaking. I grabbed my laptop bag. I walked out of the guest room. My mother was in the hallway, coming toward me. She stopped. Her face was flushed. "Alice," she said, "I thought you left. I forgot my charger." I said, holding up the bag, "I am leaving now." "Alice, please," she started. "Do not." I said, "I will see you at the gala rehearsal." "Mother, since you are so keen on me being there." It was a bluff. I had no intention of going to the rehearsal, but I needed to buy time. I walked past her, out the front door, and into the cold night air. I did not go to the hotel. I went to a 24-hour diner on the edge of the highway, ordered a black coffee, and opened my laptop. I typed Meriton Education Services into the search bar. The website was slick, lots of buzzwords: empowerment, access, strategic lending. I scrolled down to the About Us section. There were no bios of educators, no former teachers on the board. The CEO was a man named Richard Vance, whose previous experience was in subprime auto financing. I checked the corporate registration. Meriton was not a nonprofit. It was a limited liability company, a for-profit firm. I searched for Meriton Briarwood Foundation connection. Nothing direct, just press releases about partnerships. I needed a local guide. I needed someone who knew where the bodies were buried in Renford. I opened a new tab and looked up Renford Ledger Line. It was a small, independent blog that covered local politics and zoning board disputes. The editor was a guy named Caleb Rios. I had read his takedown of the mayor's landscaping contract last year. He was mean, thorough, and clearly hated the local elite. I found his contact form. Subject: The Briarwood Foundation and the Hunger of the Empty Pocket. Body: You wrote about the restricted donation scandal 2 years ago. You missed the bigger picture. It is not just about misused funds. It is about a pipeline. Look into Meriton Education Services. Look into the Resilience Fund recipients. I have documents. Meet me at the coffee mill tomorrow at 8. I hit send. Then I sat back and looked at the photo of the spreadsheet on my phone. Yield spread participation. They were getting a kickback, or a discount, or something financial was happening between the foundation, this company, and my parents. Caleb Rios looked exactly like his writing sounded: disheveled, caffeinated, and skeptical. He was wearing a flannel shirt that had seen better days and had a laptop covered in stickers. He walked into the coffee mill at 8 sharp. I waved him over. "You the tipster?" he asked, sliding into the booth opposite me. "I am Alice Hughes," I said. His eyebrows shot up. "The Alice Hughes? The inspiring success story? I saw the brochure. Quite the rags to riches tale." "It is fiction." I said, "I am the rags. My parents are the riches, and the Briarwood Foundation is the printing press." I pushed my phone across the table, showing him the photo of the benefit summary. Caleb squinted at the screen. He adjusted his glasses. Yield spread participation waved. He muttered, Well, that is interesting. What does it mean?" I asked. "Meriton isn't a charity," Caleb said, leaning back. "I have been trying to nail them for months. They are a lead generator. They partner with foundations like Briarwood. The foundation gets a scholarship applicant, let's say. A smart kid from a family that makes just enough money to not qualify for federal aid, but not enough to pay cash, like me." I said, "Exactly." Caleb said, "The foundation reviews the application. They reject it. Or, in some cases, the application disappears. But they don't just say no. They say, 'We can't help you, but our partner Meriton can.' And Meriton gives them a loan?" "No," Caleb said. "Meriton doesn't have the capital. Meriton is the broker. They funnel the student to a private lender, usually Caldwell Harbor Credit Union. But here is the kicker. The loans aren't standard student loans. They are bridge loans, private, variable interest, high caps. I have one of those." I said. I felt a cold chill spreading through my veins. I took one out when I was 22, to finish my degree after I burned out working nights. "Let me guess." Caleb said, "You didn't find the loan yourself." "A counselor suggested it." "Yes," I said, "a financial aid counselor at the community college. She gave me a pamphlet. Meriton has reps in the financial aid offices." Caleb said, They get a commission for every student they sign up. And the foundation? They get a donation from Meriton for every referral. It is a circle. Alice, the foundation rejects you to feed you to the lender. And the lender pays the foundation to keep the supply of desperate students coming. And my parents? I asked. Why is their name on a benefit summary? Caleb looked at the photo again. Yield spread waived. That usually means the donor gets a perk. If they refer a student, or if they facilitate a loan, they might get a break on their own banking fees, or… Wait, he looked at me. Your brother, did he go to college? He went to a program. I said, a resilience initiative. My parents paid for it. Did they pay cash? Caleb asked. Or did they finance it? I thought back to Evan's story. He said they wrote a check, a donation, maybe. Caleb said, or maybe the donation was the interest they saved on something else. Or maybe simply being a gold circle donor gives them access to loans for their own business at zero interest. Briarwood is basically a tax shelter and a lending club for the local rich. Disguised as a charity, I felt sick, so they used me. I said, they used my rejection to feed the system, and in exchange, they got status. They got to be platinum donors. Status is currency in this town. Caleb said, but we need proof. This photo is good, but it is circumstantial. We need the loan documents. We need to see the referral trail. I can get my loan documents. I said, I banked with Caldwell Harbor. Be careful. Caleb warned. Caldwell Harbor is the bank that holds the foundation's endowment. They protect their own. The branch of Caldwell Harbor Credit Union was on Main Street, a building of glass and steel that looked out of place among the brick storefronts. It smelled of carpet cleaner and money. I walked up to the teller. I need to request a full copy of my loan file. I said, closed account number ending in 452. The teller typed into her computer. Her smile was practiced. One moment. Ms. Hughes. She went into a back office. She was gone for 10 minutes. When she returned, she was accompanied by a man in a suit. Ms. Hughes, the man said, I am the branch manager. I understand you are looking for archived records. I want my loan application and the origination documents. I said, I am afraid those records are in deep storage, he said smoothly. It has been 9 years. We only keep active files on site. It would take weeks to retrieve them, and there is a significant fee. I will pay the fee. I said, we require a subpoena for files older than 7 years. He lied. I knew it was a lie. Federal law required them to provide consumer records upon request. I don't need a subpoena to see my own signature. I said, raising my voice slightly. I am sorry, he said, his smile tight. Policy. Is there anything else I can help you with? He was stonewalling me. He knew who I was, or rather, he knew who my parents were. I stared at him. No, I said, nothing else. I turned to leave. As I walked toward the glass doors, a young woman, a junior teller I hadn't noticed, brushed past me carrying a stack of deposit slips. Excuse me, she murmured. She bumped my hand. I felt the sharp corner of a piece of paper press against my palm. I didn't look down. I kept walking. I pushed through the doors and walked half a block before I opened my hand. It was a yellow sticky note, folded into a tiny square. Ask for file retention. Ask for the Meriton packet. It is not in deep storage. It is digital. They are scared. I looked back at the bank. The young woman was nowhere to be seen. The Meriton packet. They had a name for it. I took a breath. I couldn't go back in there now. The manager was watching. I needed a different angle. I got in my car and drove to a park by the river. I sat on a bench and called Tessa. Alice. She answered on the first ring. Are you okay? You sound like you are hyperventilating. I am finding things. Tess, I said, it is worse than I thought. It is a business. They sell students. They sold me. I told her everything. The tax folder. Caleb. The bank manager. Alice, Tessa said, her voice serious. You need to stop for a second. You are spiraling. I am not spiraling. I said, I am solving it. You are hunting, she said, and that is fine. But remember the goal Is the goal to burn them down? Or is the goal to get free? I can't be free until I know exactly what they took. I said, "Okay," Tessa said. "Chase clarity. Don't chase revenge. Revenge makes you sloppy. Clarity makes you bulletproof. Clarity." I repeated. "Call your brother," she said. "He is the weak link. If they are hiding things, he is the one who will accidentally find them. He already knows about the quiet bailout." I said, "He knows what they did for him," Tessa said. "He doesn't know what they did to you. If you show him that, he will flip." I hung up. I stared at the river. The water was gray and rushing, swollen with snowmelt. My phone buzzed. It was Evan. "Speak of the devil," I whispered. I picked up. "Evan? Alice?" he said. His voice sounded wrecked. He sounded like he was crying. "Alice, where are you?" "I am by the river." I said, "What is wrong?" "I found a box." He said, "In the garage. Dad asked me to find his torque wrench. It was on the top shelf behind the winter tires." "What is in the box?" "Evan? Emails," he said. "Printed emails. From years ago. And a notebook. Read it to me." I commanded, "There is an email from Dad to Mom." Evan said, his voice shaking. Subject line: Crestline portal reset. It is dated the night before your application was withdrawn. I gripped the phone. What does it say? It says, "I have the password. Linda at the school gave it to me when I said Alice lost it. I am going to handle it tonight. We cannot let her leave. If she leaves, we lose the leverage for the Tier 1 status." The air left my lungs. "Leverage," I whispered. "Alice," Evan sobbed. "There is more. There is a spreadsheet in the notebook. It lists donation capital. It lists your college fund." "My college fund?" It wasn't empty. Evan said, "It had $30,000 in it. Grandma left it for you before she died. They didn't spend it on bills. They transferred it." "Transferred it where?" "To the Briarwood Foundation," Evan said. "In your name, but not for you. They donated it to buy their way onto the Founder's Circle." I closed my eyes. They hadn't just refused to help me. They had taken the money my grandmother left me, money that was legally mine, or moral, at least, and donated it to a charity to buy a plaque with their names on it. And then they had forced me to take out a high-interest loan from the foundation's partner to pay for the education they stole. "Stay there." I said to Evan, "Do not move. I am coming." I drove to the house like I was driving a getaway car. My hands were steady now. Tessa was right. Clarity made you bulletproof. I had the clarity. I was made of steel. I pulled into the driveway. Evan was sitting on the front steps, the box on his lap. He looked like a child. He was 30 years old. But in that moment, he was 6. I got out of the car. I walked up to him. "Give it to me," I said. He handed me the box. Inside, just as he said, was a stack of printed emails and a black composition notebook. I opened the notebook. It was my father's handwriting. October 2012. Transfer from Nana Trust. Checking. Transfer checking. Briarwood. Capital campaign. Note. Secures platinum invites. April 2013. Withdrew A's app. Too risky. If she gets scholarship, no need for loan. No loan equals no referral credit. No loan equals no referral credit. They needed me to take the loan. The foundation needed the referral. My father needed the credit with the foundation to maintain his status. I looked at the front door. "Are they inside?" I asked. Evan nodded. "They are watching TV. Like nothing happened." "Come with me," I said. "Alice, I can't." "Come with me," I said. "You were the one they protected. You have to be the one to watch them fall." I pulled him up. We walked into the house together. My parents were in the living room. My father had a scotch in his hand. My mother was flipping through a magazine. They looked up. My father's face hardened when he saw the box in my hands. "What are you doing with that?" he asked. "That is private property. It is evidence." I said, I threw the notebook onto the coffee table. It landed with a heavy thud. "We know." I said, "We know about the trust fund. We know about the password reset. We know about Meriton. My mother went pale. She looked at Evan. Evan? You gave her that? I found it, Evan said, his voice cracking. Dad, you said you used the money for bills. You said we were drowning. We were drowning, my father shouted. He stood up. Socially. We were nobodies in this town. Do you know what that is like? To be looked through? To be ignored at the club? You stole my college fund to be popular at a country club? I asked. The absurdity of it hit me. It wasn't even about survival. It was about vanity. It was an investment, he yelled. Networking. Connections. Do you think Evan got that job at the logistics firm because of his resume? I got that for him through a contact at the foundation. Do you think we got the loan for the remodel from a bank? It was a private arrangement through a donor. So you sold me. I said, you sold my future to buy a new kitchen and a job for Evan. We didn't sell you, my mother whispered. She was crying now, silent, ugly tears. We needed the referral. The foundation needed numbers. They said if we referred a candidate for the bridge loan, it would count toward our annual giving. So you sabotaged my scholarship. I said, you logged in and withdrew it. I panicked, my mother cried out. I did it. Not your father. I did it. My father looked at her, shocked that she had spoken. I logged in. She sobbed. I saw the confirmation. You were going to leave. You were going to go 4 hours away and never look back. And David said if you went, we lost the referral, and we lost the money. For your own good. My father interjected, trying to regain control. You were too emotional. Alice, you were soft. You needed to learn how to fight. I didn't need to fight, I screamed. I had won. I had the scholarship. You dragged me back into the ring just so you could bet on the other guy. It made you strong, he insisted. He was desperate now, clinging to the narrative. Look at you. You are a success. I am a victim of fraud, I said. And you are the perpetrators. Alice, please, my mother begged. We can fix this. We can pay off your loan. We have money now. I don't want your money. I said, I want the truth, and I want everyone else to know it. You wouldn't, my father sneered. You wouldn't shame the family. You wouldn't destroy us. The family? I laughed. It was a cold, dead sound. What family? There is no family here. There is just a ledger, and I am in the red. I looked at Evan. He was staring at our parents with a look of absolute horror. Evan, I said, we are leaving. Evan, stay here, my father commanded. Evan looked at our father. Then he looked at me. He saw the box of emails. He saw the truth of the last 10 years. No, Evan said, I think I am independent now too. He walked to my side. If you walk out that door, my father threatened, his face purple. You are cut off, both of you. No inheritance. No nothing. You already spent the inheritance. Dad, I said, on plaques. I picked up the box. I picked up the notebook. I'm keeping these, I said. We walked out. We walked out into the cool night air of Renford. The stars were out. They looked indifferent. We got into my car. Evan sat in the passenger seat. He put his head in his hands and started to sob. I didn't cry. I felt a strange, vibrating energy in my chest. I took my phone out. I dialed Caleb Rios. I have the documents. I said, I have the internal emails. I have the ledger. Good. Caleb said, when do you want to publish? Not yet. I said, publishing is too easy. They can deny a blog post. Then what? They want me to speak at the gala. I said, they want a success story. I looked at the notebook on my lap, the record of my sale. I am going to give them one. I said, I drove back to Bishop Falls in the dark, the highway stretching out like a black ribbon under my headlights. Evan had stayed behind in Renford, crashing on a friend's couch because he couldn't stomach the idea of going back to the house on Oak Creek Drive. I didn't blame him. My apartment felt different when I walked in. It was still the same quiet, second-floor walk-up, but the silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was heavy. It was the silence of a crime scene after the police have left. I didn't sleep. I made a pot of coffee at 2 a.m. and cleared off my kitchen table. I took the photos I had snapped of the documents, the notes I had made from Evan's box, and the printout from Linda Carver, and I started to build a timeline. I was a project manager. Timelines were my language. April 2012. My application for the Crestline Scholarship is submitted. April 13th, 2012. My father emails my mother about the password reset. April 14th, 2012. My application is withdrawn by parent_guardian_access_04. May 2012. I receive rejection letters from other aid sources. My parents claim poverty. June 2012. My grandmother's trust fund, $30,000, is transferred from my account to the Briarwood Foundation as a capital campaign donation. August 2012. I am referred to Meriton Education Services by a financial aid counselor. September 2012. I sign a bridge loan with Caldwell Harbor Credit Union. Interest rate, 8%. January 2013. My parents are listed as silver partners in the foundation newsletter. I stared at the paper. It was a perfect, vicious circle. They stole my money to buy status. They sabotaged my free ride to force me into a loan. The loan generated a kickback, or at least a referral credit, for the foundation, which solidified their status, and the foundation grew. I looked at the donor list from the library. In 2012, the assets were $2 million. By 2020, they were over $10 million. How many students? That was the question that kept nagging me. How many other kids had been managed into debt so their parents could eat gala dinners? I opened my laptop. It was 4 a.m. I drafted an email to Caldwell Harbor Credit Union. Subject: Formal Records Request. Consumer Credit File. I cited the Fair Credit Reporting Act. I demanded every piece of paper with my signature on it. Then I drafted an email to the Briarwood Community Foundation. 2. Board of Directors. CC. Holt Keene Legal Aid. I am formally demanding the immediate removal of my name, likeness, and story from all promotional materials. I am also demanding a full accounting of all donations made in my name, specifically the transfer of $30,000 in June of 2012. I am aware of the irregularities regarding my scholarship application and the subsequent loan referral. Preserve all records. Holt Keene was a name I knew from a podcast about student debt litigation. They were a consumer advocacy group, aggressive and well-funded. I didn't have them on retainer, but copying them was a signal. I am not playing. I hit send. Then I went to work. I sat in meetings about supply chain logistics. I nodded when people talked about shipping delays. But my mind was in Renford. At 2 p.m, my phone rang. Alice Hughes? The voice was crisp, fast, and professional. Speaking, "This is Meena Patel. I am a paralegal at Holt Keene. We received a copy of your email to the Briarwood Foundation." My heart jumped. "Oh, I didn't expect you to call. I wanted them to know I was serious. You got our attention," Meena said. "We have been looking at Meriton Education Services for a while. They operate in a gray zone, but we have never had a plaintiff with a direct link to the foundation side of the scheme. You mentioned a scholarship withdrawal?" "I have proof." I said, "A confirmation email from the portal. That is good." Meena said, "But listen to me carefully. When you send a preservation letter to an organization like that, the first thing they do is panic. The second thing they do is shred." "Shred?" "They sanitize," she corrected. "Emails get deleted. Hard drives get wiped. Paper files get misplaced during routine cleaning. If you have access to physical evidence, you need to secure it now. Do not wait for a subpoena. If it is in your parents' house, it is vulnerable. I have photos." I said, "Photos are good," Meena said. "Originals are better, and we need context. The ledger you mentioned? The notebook? Get it. Scan every page. If that disappears, your case becomes a he said, she said family dispute." "Okay," I said. "I will get it. Be fast," she said. "And Alice? Be careful. People with that kind of money don't like being exposed." I called Evan. I am coming back. I said, tonight. We need to empty the garage. The garage? Evan sounded tired. Alice, Dad changed the locks on the house this morning. I tried my key. It doesn't work. What about the keypad? I asked. Change code, he said. They are on lockdown. Damn it, I hissed. What about the box? The one you found? I have that, he said. I put it in a storage unit. I rented one at the U-Store It on Miller Avenue. I grabbed a few other boxes from the garage before I left yesterday. The ones labeled Gala and Taxes. I breathed a sigh of relief. Good. You are a genius. Evan, I am not a genius, he said bitterly. I am a thief. I stole my parents' files. You liberated evidence. I said, meet me at the unit in 3 hours. Bring a scanner if you can find one. The U-Store. It was a depressing row of orange metal doors under a flickering halogen light. It was raining again. A cold, miserable drizzle that soaked through my coat. Evan was waiting by unit number 42. He looked like he hadn't slept in 2 days. He was wearing the same clothes he had on yesterday. Hey, he said. I hugged him. It was a fierce, quick hug. Thank you. He shrugged. I brought a scanner. I borrowed it from work. He rolled up the door. The unit was small, smelling of concrete dust. In the center sat 4 cardboard boxes. This is it? I asked. This is what I could grab, he said. Most of the old stuff was in the attic, but Dad moved these to the garage last week. I think he was planning to shred them. I opened the first box. Briarwood Gala 2018 to 2022. Inside were guest lists, seating charts, and invoices for catering. Tens of thousands of dollars spent on flowers and wine. I opened the second box. Student files/referrals. My heart hammered. I pulled out a folder. Gomez, Mateo. Inside was a profile of a student. High potential. Financial need. High. Recommendation. Bridge loan via Meriton. There were handwritten notes in the margins. Family not influential. Good candidate for yield program. My God, I whispered. They profiled us. Look at this, Evan said. He was holding a thick black notebook. The ledger. I took it from him. It wasn't just a list of numbers. It was a diary of transactional relationships. January 2015. Donation to foundation, $5,000. Note. Met with Carver regarding Evan's transcript. Handled. March 2016. Meriton kickback received. $2,500. Labeled as consulting fee. June 2018. Alice loan interest payment. Defaulting. Check status. Can we leverage refinance for gold tier renewal? I felt sick. Leverage refinance. They were tracking my struggle. They knew when I was defaulting, and instead of helping, they were calculating how to use my desperation to renew their status. It is a system. I said, flipping the pages. Look, Crestline portal handled. That is me. Meriton referral equals appreciation dinner. That is the kickback. It is not just us, Evan said, pointing to a page. Look at this list. Target families. I looked. There were a dozen names. Perez, Nguyen, Kowalski, all local families, all working class, all people who would be desperate for a chance at college. They targeted first-generation kids. I said, kids whose parents wouldn't know how the system worked. Kids who would trust a counselor who told them to sign a loan. I looked at Evan. He was pale. What is it? I asked. There is an entry here for me, he said. From 3 years ago. He pointed to a line near the back of the book. January 2023. Evan repayment. $400 per month. Note. Direct deposit to foundation account. Offsets pledge commitment. Evan, I said slowly. Why were you paying them $400 a month? He looked down at his shoes. They told me it was for medical debt, he said. From when I was in the program. They said insurance didn't cover everything and they were still paying it off. They asked me to chip in. Medical debt? I asked. From 10 years ago? I believed them. He said, I felt guilty. I thought I owed them. You were paying their pledge, I said, realizing the horror of it. You were paying their donation to the foundation. They couldn't afford the gold tier anymore, so they made you subsidize it. Evan sat down on one of the boxes. He put his head in his hands. I am so stupid. I am 30 years old, and I am paying my parents' vanity bill. You are not stupid, I said. You were managed. I feel sick, he said. I feel like I am complicit. You are not complicit, I said. You are a victim, just like me. No, he said, looking up, his eyes wet. I got the bailout. You got the debt. I am the one who benefited. Did you? I asked. Look at you. You are terrified of them. You are paying them rent for a mistake you made as a teenager. They kept you on a leash. Evan, they just used a different kind of chain. He looked at me. We were both managed. He whispered, just differently. Exactly. I said, I was the scapegoat. You were the golden child, but both roles were designed to serve them. My phone rang. It was my mother. I stared at the screen. Answer it, Evan said. Put it on speaker. I slid the bar. Hello, Alice. She wept. Oh, Alice, why are you doing this? Doing what? I asked calmly. Reading your diary? Your father is having chest pains. She cried. Real ones this time. The stress. You are killing him. Is that what you want? To kill your father over money? It is not about money, I said. It is about the truth. And stop using his health as a shield. It doesn't work on me anymore. We made one mistake, she shrieked. One mistake with the application. And now you want to ruin our lives. We are being punished for trying to protect you. It wasn't one mistake, I said. I looked at the ledger, at the years of entries, at the names of the other students. It was a decade of choices. It was a business model. Mother, you turned your children into commodities. We loved you, she sobbed. We did everything for you. You did everything for yourselves, I said, and you used us to pay the bill. Please, she whispered. Please just stop. The lawyers called. The foundation is asking questions. If this comes out, we lose everything. The house, the friends, the reputation. You should have thought of that before you stole my trust fund. I said, Alice. I hung up. I looked at Evan. He was dry-eyed now. The guilt was gone, replaced by a cold, hard anger. Scan everything, he said. Every single page. We spent 4 hours in the storage unit. The scanner whirred rhythmically. A mechanical heartbeat in the cold room. Page 104. Email regarding sanitizing donor list. Page 105. Receipt for consulting services from Meriton. When we were done, I had a digital file that could sink a battleship. I sent the files to a secure cloud server. Then I sent a copy to Meena Patel at Holt Keene. My phone buzzed again. It was Caleb Rios. Alice. He texted. I heard rumors. The foundation board is calling an emergency meeting. They know something is up. Do I have permission to publish? I have the draft ready. The Resilience Racket. It is a killer headline. I looked at the text. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to burn it all down right now. I wanted to see my parents' names in black and white, exposed for the frauds they were. But Tessa's voice was in my head. Clarity, not revenge. If Caleb published now, they would deny it. They would spin it. They would say it was a bitter daughter and a conspiracy theorist blogger. They would say the documents were forged. I needed them to admit it. Or I needed to catch them in a lie so big they couldn't spin their way out of it. Not yet. I texted back. Hold the story. I want legal leverage first. I want them to sweat. Don't wait too long. Caleb replied. Scoops don't stay fresh forever. Trust me. I wrote, the finale will be worth the wait. I looked at Evan. He was taping up the boxes. What now? He asked. Now, I said, we go back to our lives. We let them think they have contained it. We let them think they can buy us off. They will try. Evan said, I know. I said, and when they do, we will be recording. I drove back to Bishop Falls that night. The rain had stopped. The air was clear and cold. I walked into my apartment and looked at the invitation to the gala on my counter. Inspiring first-generation success story. I picked it up. I wasn't going to just attend the gala. I was going to be the show. The draft complaint looked less like a legal document and more like an autopsy report of my early 20s. I sat at my kitchen table in Bishop Falls, the phone pressed to my ear, listening to the rhythmic clicking of Meena Patel's keyboard on the other end. It was raining again, a relentless gray drizzle that blurred the view of the river. But inside, the air was dry and still. "We are listing identity theft," Meena said, her voice crisp. "That is the strongest lead. The use of your name and likeness without consent is a tort. But using your identity to secure a loan? That is federal fraud. We are also including interference with contractual relations regarding the Crestline scholarship." Interference, I repeated. The word felt too sterile. It sounded like static on a radio line, not a father logging into a portal at midnight to delete his daughter's future. "It is the legal term," Meena said gently. "We have to strip the emotion out of it to make it stick. Alice, the court does not care about betrayal. It cares about damages. We need to quantify what you lost." "I lost 4 years." I said. "I lost a degree. I lost the ability to sleep through the night without panicking about interest rates. We will calculate lost wages and the cost of the darker debt." She said, "But the deception is the hook. We need to prove the lending practices were predatory. That is where Meriton comes in. Have you received the packet from Caldwell Harbor yet?" "Not yet." I said. "They are stalling. They can only stall so long." Meena said, "We sent the demand letter via certified mail. The clock runs out tomorrow. The clock ran out at 4 in the afternoon. I was home early from work, pacing the small footprint of my living room, when the buzzer rang. It was a courier. He handed me a thick, sealed envelope with the Caldwell Harbor logo stamped in blue ink. I took it to the table. My hands were steady. I sliced it open with a letter opener. Inside was a stack of paper an inch thick. The cover letter was brief, citing the Fair Credit Reporting Act and stating that this constituted a complete and unredacted file. I turned the page. There it was, the loan application. It was dated September 10th, 2012. I remembered that month. I was working double shifts at the diner, sleeping 4 hours a night, trying to figure out how to pay for community college tuition. I remembered sitting in the financial aid office, crying because I was $300 short. I looked at the application. Applicant: Alice Marie Hughes. Cosigner: none. Referral source: Meriton Education Services. And then the email address. Contact email: ahughes@futuregmail.com. I stared at it. I had never owned that email address. In 2012. My email was a silly handle involving my favorite band. I had never used Ahughes, Future. I looked at the creation date of the file. It was September 3rd. I flipped back to my timeline, the one I had constructed during my sleepless night. September 3rd was the same week my scholarship application had been withdrawn. They had created the email address before I even knew I needed a loan. They had set up the mechanism for my debt while I was still thinking I had a full ride. I felt a cold, metallic taste in my mouth. It wasn't just opportunism. It was premeditated. I turned to the internal notes. These were the pages the bank manager had tried to hide. The Meriton packet the young teller had warned me about. Underwriting note: applicant is high risk due to lack of credit history. Approval granted based on partner referral. Briarwood. And below that, a handwritten note scrawled in the margin of the risk assessment. Student is motivated by independence messaging. Family aligned. Push the self-reliance product. Independence messaging. Family aligned. I recognized the phrasing immediately. It was my father's voice. It was the same rhetoric he used at the dinner table, the same lecture he gave me when I asked for gas money. You need to learn independence. Alice, he hadn't just refused to help. He had marketed my struggle. He had told the lenders exactly how to pitch the predatory loan to me, push the self-reliance product. I remembered the financial aid counselor, a woman with a kind face who had handed me the brochure. This loan is for students who want to take ownership of their education. She had said, it builds credit. It shows you are serious. I had eaten it up. I had been so desperate to prove I could do it. to prove I didn't need them, that I signed the papers without reading the fine print about variable rates and capitalization. I had been played, from both sides. I scanned the document immediately, sending the PDF to Mina. I have the smoking gun. I typed. They created a fake email to facilitate the loan, and they admitted in writing that the family was aligned with the predatory lender. I closed the laptop. I needed air. But I didn't go for a walk. I got in my car. There was a board meeting tonight. Hollow Bend City Hall was a brutalist structure of concrete and glass, serving the Tri-County area. The Briarwood Community Foundation held their quarterly public board meetings here to maintain their status as a community organization. Though the real decisions were made in private dining rooms at the country club, I walked into the auditorium at 6:30. It was half full. Mostly older people, retirees who volunteered, and a few scholarship recipients who looked terrified and grateful. I took a seat in the back row. I was wearing a black trench coat and dark glasses. Though it was raining, I took the glasses off but kept my head down. I saw them on the stage. The board of directors. There was Graham Pell, a local real estate developer with teeth that were too white. There was Celine Ward, the director, a woman who wore silk scarves like armor. And there, at the end of the table, was a nameplate that made my stomach turn. David Hughes, community liaison. My father wasn't there. His seat was empty. The medical scare was a convenient excuse for absence, or perhaps he knew, deep down, that the walls were closing in. The meeting began with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a treasurer's report that glossed over administrative costs in the millions. Then came the impact stories. Celine Ward stood up. She had a voice like warm honey. "We are so proud," she said, to share the story of a young man from Renford who, thanks to our Resilience Fund, turned his life around. He was on a path to nowhere, but with a micro-grant and the guidance of our partners at Meriton, he is now a certified welder. A young man walked onto the stage. He looked uncomfortable in a suit that didn't fit. He stammered through a speech about gratitude and hard work. I listened. I heard the keywords: grit, second chance, ownership. It was a script, just like mine. When the meeting opened for public comment, I didn't stand up. I wasn't ready to make a scene. Not yet. I just watched. I watched Graham Pell check his watch. I watched Celine Ward smile that practiced. Dead-eyed smile at the welder. I was the ghost at the feast. When the meeting adjourned, I lingered in the lobby. I was looking at a display of past successes, photos of smiling graduates pinned to a corkboard. I wondered how many of them were paying 8% interest to Caldwell Harbor. Ms. Hughes? I turned. Graham Pell was standing there, up close. He smelled of expensive cologne and stale coffee. He was smiling, but his eyes were scanning the hallway to see who was watching. "Mr. Pell," I said, "I recognized you from the brochure," he said, stepping a little too close. "I was sorry to hear your father is under the weather. We missed him tonight." "I am sure you did." I said, "He is a valuable asset," he chuckled, a low, smooth sound. "He is, look, Alice. Can I call you Alice? I heard there has been some friction regarding the gala materials. Friction is one word for it." I said, "Fraud is another." His smile didn't waver, but the corners of his eyes tightened. "Let's not use ugly words. Misunderstandings happen. We are a volunteer board. After all, sometimes enthusiasm outpaces bureaucracy. Is that what you call creating a fake email address to sign a student up for a high-interest loan?" I asked. "Enthusiasm?" He paused. He looked at me. Really looked at me. Assessing the threat level. "You are a smart woman." "Alice," he said, lowering his voice, "you work in logistics, right? You understand that systems are complex. Sometimes, to help people, you have to streamline the process." Streamline. I repeated, "We want you on the team." He said, "We really do. Your story is powerful." In fact, the board was discussing a speaker honorarium for the gala. "We value our alumni. We were thinking, $10,000? For your time?" $10,000. It was an insult. It was a bribe. It was a test. And if I accept? I asked. I assume the friction disappears? We would expect a spirit of cooperation, he said smoothly. A unified front. For the good of the community, we wouldn't want to tarnish the work we do over a paperwork error from a decade ago. Would we? I reached into my pocket. My phone was recording. I had started the voice memo app the moment he approached me. $10,000 to forget that you worked with my parents to sabotage my scholarship and sell my debt. I said clearly. Graham Pell's smile vanished. He stepped back. I think you are confused, he said coldly. We are offering a standard honorarium. If you choose to interpret it differently, that is on you. I don't think I am confused. Graham, I said, I think I am finally seeing things very clearly. Be careful. Alice, he said. The menace was open now, stripping away the veneer of the community leader. You are one person, we are an institution, and your parents, well, they are heavily invested. If you pull a thread, you might unravel them first. Maybe they need to be unraveled, I said. He stared at me for a beat, then turned and walked away, his shoes clicking on the terrazzo floor. I stopped the recording. I drove back to Bishop Falls, but I didn't go inside. I sat in my car in the parking lot, watching the rain streak the windshield. My phone rang. It was Evan. Alice, he said. His voice was quiet. I talked to Mom. Did she admit it? I asked. She told me everything. Evan said, it is worse than we thought. How can it be worse? The independence thing. Evan said, the whole we won't pay for college because you need to build character speech? It wasn't just about saving money. What was it about? It was a cover. Evan said, Dad was in trouble. Back in 2012. He had been dipping into the restricted funds at his company, the logistics firm he owned before he sold it. He was using client retainers to pay for donor perks at the foundation. He was trying to buy his way into the social circle, and he got overextended. I listened. The windshield wipers counting time. Go on. He needed to cut expenses immediately. Evan continued, but he couldn't look broke. If he looked broke, the investors would audit him. So he needed a narrative. He needed a reason why he wasn't paying for your college that didn't sound like, I have no money. So he invented the moral stance. I realized, exactly. Evan said. He told everyone, his partners, the club, the foundation, that he was cutting you off to teach you a lesson. It turned his financial failure into a parenting philosophy. It made him look principled instead of desperate. I laughed. It was a jagged sound. He destroyed my life to hide his embezzlement. And then, Evan said, when the foundation saw how committed he was to the tough love bit, they offered him the partnership with Meriton. It was a way for him to get money back. The kickbacks from the referrals helped him pay back the client funds he stole. So I paid his debt. I whispered, my student loan paid off his theft. Yes, Evan said. He used you as a shield and then as a bank account. I hung up. I started the car. I wasn't going to my apartment. I was going back to Renford. Renford Regional Hospital was quiet at 11 at night. The hallways smelled of antiseptic and floor wax. My father had been admitted that afternoon for observation, the convenient chest pains returning the moment the pressure mounted. I walked past the nurse's station. I knew the room number because my mother had texted it to me 3 times, begging me to visit. Room 304. The door was open. The room was dim, lit only by the glow of the vitals monitor. My father was lying in the bed, looking small. The hospital gown stripped away the authority of his polo shirts and tailored slacks. He looked like what he was, an old man with a bad heart and too many secrets. My mother wasn't there. She was probably in the cafeteria. Or maybe Evan had finally convinced her to go home. I walked in and stood at the foot of the bed. He opened his eyes. He didn't look surprised to see me. Alice? He croaked. Hello? Dad? You came, he said. A faint smile touched his lips. I knew you would. You are a good daughter. I am not here to hold your hand. I said, I am here to ask you one question. He sighed, closing his eyes again. The scholarship, he muttered. You are still on that. Why? I asked. I know about the money. I know about the embezzlement cover-up. Evan told me. But you could have just let me go. You could have let me take the scholarship and leave. It was free money. It wouldn't have cost you a dime. He opened his eyes. He looked at the ceiling. If you took the scholarship, he said, his voice raspy, you would have been free. That was the point. I said, no. He said, if you were free, I couldn't control the story. You would have gone to the city. You would have succeeded on your own. And everyone would have known that I didn't help you, that I wasn't the provider. He turned his head to look at me. His eyes were watery, blue and faded. I couldn't stand it. He whispered, I couldn't stand losing control. If I cut you off, I was the author of your struggle. If you succeeded, it was because of my lesson. If you failed, it was because you didn't listen. Either way, it was about me. I stared at him. I had expected to feel triumph. I had expected the satisfaction of the villain confessing his master plan. But I didn't feel triumph. I felt a profound, heavy grief. It wasn't a master plan. It wasn't 4D chess. It was just ego. Small, fragile, pathetic ego. He had broken my wings not because he needed the feathers, but because he couldn't stand watching me fly without his permission. You are small, I said. My voice was steady, but tears were pricking my eyes. You are so incredibly small. I did what I had to do, he said, turning away. I kept the family afloat. You sank the family. I said, you just stood on our heads to keep yourself dry. I turned and walked out. I didn't say goodbye. There was no point. The father I thought I had, the strict, principled, difficult man, never existed. There was only this, a frightened thief in a hospital bed. The next morning, I sat in the conference room at Holt Keene. Meena Patel was there, along with a senior attorney named Robert Vance. We have enough, Robert said, looking at the file I had compiled. The scanner files from the storage unit, the recording of Graham Pell, the loan documents, the timeline. This is RICO territory. Alice, racketeering, conspiracy, fraud. I don't want a 10-year court battle. I said, I want it to stop. I want them to admit it. They won't admit it. Meena said, not unless they are forced. Then we force them. I said, we drafted a demand letter. It was an ultimatum. To the board of directors of the Briarwood Community Foundation. We are in possession of evidence documenting systemic fraud, predatory lending, and identity theft involving your organization and its partners. We demand the following: immediate and permanent removal of Alice Hughes from all promotional materials, a written, public acknowledgement of the misappropriation of the Hughes Trust funds, full cooperation with an independent forensic audit of all scholarship and lending activities dating back to 2012. Failure to comply within 48 hours will result in the release of all evidence to the Attorney General and the press. We sent it. I waited. The 48 hours passed in a blur of anxiety. I stayed at a hotel in Renford, unable to go back to Bishop Falls. I felt like I was holding a grenade with the pin pulled. On the morning of the third day, the response came. It was a letter on the same cream-colored stationery that had started this whole nightmare. Dear Ms. Hughes, the Briarwood Community Foundation regrets that you feel your experience with our program has been unsatisfactory. We strive to empower all students. Regarding your specific concerns, our internal review suggests a misunderstanding regarding the classification of family contributions. We are willing to remove your image from future printings as a courtesy. However, we cannot agree to an external audit based on unfounded allegations. We consider this matter closed. Regret that you feel misunderstanding, unfounded allegations. They were gaslighting me, even with the evidence staring them in the face. They were betting that I wouldn't pull the trigger. They were betting that I was still the scared 22-year-old girl who would fold under pressure. They thought they could wait me out. I looked at the letter. I folded it neatly and put it in my bag. They will never confess, I said to myself. They are incapable of it. I called Caleb Rios. Are you ready? He asked. Not yet. I said, the gala is in 2 days, right? Saturday night. Caleb said. The biggest event of the year. I need a favor. I said, I need you to get me into the AV booth. The AV booth? Caleb laughed. Alice, what are you planning? I am planning to give a speech, I said, just not the one they wrote for me. I spent the next 24 hours preparing the final file. I scanned the ledger pages where my name appeared alongside the kickback amounts. I scanned the Independence messaging note from the bank. I scanned the email withdrawal confirmation. I took the recording of Graham Pell trying to bribe me and converted it to a waveform visual. I put it all on a flash drive, a small silver drive that felt heavy in my hand. I met Caleb and Mina at a diner off the highway. I handed them each a copy of the drive. This is the insurance, I said. If anything happens to me, if I get arrested, if they try to silence me, if I don't make it to the stage, you publish. You release everything. Mina took the drive. She looked worried. Alice, disrupting a private event, you could face trespassing charges. Harassment suits. Let them sue me. I said, I want them to sue me. Then I get discovery. Caleb grinned. I like this side of you. Alice, I am done being managed. I said, I am taking control. I looked at the timeline one last time. Saturday night. I said, the Resilience Gala. Let's see how resilient they are when the lights come on. The Renford Country Club was a fortress of limestone and manicured ivy, lit up against the night sky like a cruise ship stranded in a sea of dark pines. Valets in white jackets were parking Teslas and Range Rovers. The air smelled of exhaust, expensive perfume, and the crisp, wood smoke scent of an Oregon autumn. I parked my Honda Civic 3 blocks away, under a flickering streetlight. I did not want a valet ticket. I did not want a paper trail. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. I looked like a stranger. My hair, usually pulled back in a messy ponytail, was pinned into a severe, elegant chignon. I was wearing a black dress I had bought at a consignment shop in Portland. Silk, high-necked, long-sleeved. It was not a party dress. It was a funeral dress, or perhaps a judge's robe. I touched the small silver flash drive in my clutch. It was cold against my fingertips. Clarity, I whispered, not revenge. Clarity. I stepped out of the car. The wind bit through the silk, but I didn't feel it. My adrenaline was a low, steady hum, like a high-voltage wire. I walked toward the light. At the entrance, the security was tight. A man with an earpiece checked a tablet. Name? He asked without looking up. Alice Hughes. I said. He paused. He looked up. His eyes widened slightly. Ms. Hughes, we were told you might not make it. Your father said. My father was mistaken. I said, I am the guest of honor, aren't I? He hesitated, then stepped aside. Right this way. Ma'am. I walked into the grand ballroom. It was a cavern of gold leaf and crystal. 10 round tables were set with white linens and towering floral centerpieces. A jazz band played softly in the corner. The room buzzed with the low, polite murmur of money. I scanned the room. I saw the platinum tier tables near the front. I saw the gold circle, and there, projected on a massive screen behind the stage, was the logo of the Briarwood Community Foundation. And below it, the theme of the night, resilience, the art of bouncing back. I felt a hand on my elbow. I flinched, turning sharp. It was Evan. He looked terrified. He was wearing a suit that was a size too big, an old one, likely the only one he hadn't bought with their money. His face was pale, sweating slightly under the chandeliers. You came, I said. I couldn't let you do it alone. He said, I tried to stay away. I drove halfway to the coast, but then I looked at the road and I realized I am driving a car they paid for. I am wearing a watch they bought. I am just a collection of their receipts. You are here now. I said, that is what matters. Where are they? He asked, scanning the front row. Front and center. I said, I saw them. My mother was wearing a navy sequined gown, her back rigid. My father was beside her, looking frail but upright, playing the part of the recovering patriarch. They were shaking hands with the mayor. They looked successful. They looked untouchable. They have no idea. Evan whispered. They think they bought silence. I said, they think the letter worked. I checked my watch. 7:15. The program started at 7:30. I need to get to the AV booth, I said. But Graham Pell will be watching the floor. I will watch the floor, Evan said. He straightened his tie. I will run interference. No, I said. I need you with me. You know the tech. I need someone to patch into the system if they lock the console. Then how do we get past the director? Evan asked. Celine Ward is standing right by the stage stairs. I looked. Celine Ward was there. A vision in cream silk, holding a clipboard like a weapon. She was talking to Graham Pell. We don't sneak past, I said. We walk right up to them. We navigated the room. People turned to stare. I saw whispers ripple through the crowd. Is that her? The daughter? I thought they were estranged. I kept my chin high. I didn't smile. I moved with the kinetic force of a freight train. Celine Ward saw me first. Her smile didn't falter, but her eyes went flat. She touched Graham's arm. He turned, and his face went through a complex spasm of shock, anger, and forced delight. Alice, Celine cooed, stepping forward to intercept us before we could reach the stairs. What a surprise. We were under the impression you were indisposed. I made a recovery. I said, and Evan? Graham said, his voice tight. A family reunion. How touching. We need to talk. I said, now, backstage. We are about to start the program, Celine said, checking her diamond watch. Perhaps after the... Now, I said. I lifted my clutch. Or we can talk right here, in front of the mayor. Celine's eyes flicked to the mayor, who was standing 3 feet away, eating a shrimp puff. Fine, she hissed. 5 minutes. She motioned to a security guard, who opened the side curtain. We stepped into the backstage area. It was dark, smelling of plywood and hot electronics. The noise of the gala was muffled instantly. Graham Pell closed the curtain behind us. The smile dropped off his face like a mask hitting the floor. What the hell are you doing here? He demanded. We sent you a letter. The matter is closed. The matter is not closed, I said. I reached into my bag and pulled out a manila folder. I didn't hand it to him. I opened it. On top was a copy of the ledger page. Meriton referral equals appreciation dinner. Below that was the yield spread waive document. Below that was the email creating the fake account A. Hughes, future. I held it up. I know about the kickbacks. I said, I know about the partnership with Meriton. I know that you funnel rejected scholarship applicants into high-interest loans to generate revenue for the foundation's operating costs. Graham went still. Celine Ward didn't blink. She looked at the documents with the detached interest of an accountant spotting a rounding error. This is stolen property, Graham said. We could have you arrested right now. Go ahead, I said. Call the police. I will hand this folder to the first officer who walks through the door. And then I will hand a copy to the IRS. There was a silence. The hum of the stage lights seemed deafening. Celine Ward stepped forward. She smoothed the front of her cream dress. You are very thorough, she said. Her voice was calm, almost admiring. I see why you are a project manager. I want an answer. I said, How many? How many what? She asked. How many students? I asked. How many kids did you reject just so you could sell them a loan? How many parents did you manipulate into tough love so you could hit your referral quotas? Celine sighed. She looked tired. Alice, you are looking at this through a very narrow lens. We run a foundation. Foundations require capital. If we relied solely on donations, we would have folded 5 years ago. Meriton provides liquidity. Liquidity, I repeated. You call ruining an 18-year-old's credit score liquidity? We help who we can, Celine said. Her tone was chillingly practical. The scholars we fund? They go to Harvard. They go to Stanford. We create leaders, but we can't fund everyone. So for the rest, we offer a path. It is a harder path. Yes, but it is a path into debt, Evan said, his voice trembling. A path to resilience. Celine corrected. The world is hard. Evan, we don't make it soft. We teach people to survive it. You don't teach them, I said. You eat them. Graham Pell stepped in. Sensing the conversation was drifting too close to philosophy, he pulled a checkbook from his tuxedo jacket. Look, he said, you have us, okay? You found the loophole. Smart girl. So let's make a deal. We are pragmatic people. He uncapped a fountain pen. Name your number. He said, we offered 10. You want 50? 100? We can classify it as a consulting fee. We can even put you on the board, the youth seat. You can help us reform the system from the inside. Isn't that what you want? Influence? I looked at the checkbook. It was the ultimate test. The system was trying to absorb me. It was trying to turn me into one of them. If I took the money, I was smart. I was a winner. I was resilient. If I refused, I was just a girl with a grudge. I looked at Evan. He was watching me. I looked at Celine. She was smiling, confident that everyone has a price. No, I said. I closed the folder. I don't want your seat, I said, and I don't want your money. Then what do you want? Graham snapped. Revenge? It won't pay your rent. Alice, I want the truth. I said. I turned to Evan. Let's go. You can't go out there, Graham said. Blocking the curtain. Security! 2 large men in black suits materialized from the shadows of the wings. They blocked the exit to the stage. Escort them out, Celine commanded. Quietly, through the loading dock. Don't touch me, I warned. One of the guards reached for my arm. Hey! The voice came from the other side of the stage. We all turned. Standing by the curtain, holding a tray of champagne glasses, was a woman in a caterer's uniform. She had dark hair tucked under a cap and familiar, sharp eyes. It was Tessa. Who are you? Graham barked. Caterer, Tessa said. I think there is a fire in the kitchen. Or maybe a flood. Someone should really check the sprinkler system. As she spoke, she casually tipped the tray. 20 glasses of champagne crashed onto the floor. The sound was explosive, shattering glass, splashing liquid. It was chaos. The guards instinctively turned toward the noise. Run, Tessa mouthed. I didn't run. I walked. Fast. Evan grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the ladder that led to the AV booth. It was a narrow, metal cage ladder bolted to the back wall. Stop them, Graham yelled. But the guards were slipping on the champagne. Tessa had accidentally dropped a second tray. We scrambled up the ladder. My silk dress tore on a bolt. I didn't care. We hit the landing of the AV booth. It was a glass-walled box overlooking the ballroom. Inside, a tech guy with headphones was scrolling on his phone. He looked up, startled, as we burst in. Whoa, he said. Restricted area. Evan, I said. Evan moved. He was faster than he looked. He stepped past the tech guy and jammed the silver flash drive into the main console. Hey, the tech guy shouted. Standing up, you can't do that. I stepped in front of him. I was small, but I was furious. Sit down, I said, or I will tell everyone you were browsing Reddit during the gala. He sat down. Evan's fingers flew across the keyboard. I am in, he said. They have a playlist queued. Resilience_montage_final.mp4. Override it, I said, bypassing. Evan muttered. Loading the _truth.move. Below us. The lights dimmed. A hush fell over the ballroom. Celine Ward was on the stage now, at the podium. She couldn't see us in the booth. She smiled at the audience. And now, she said, her voice amplified and smooth, we present a tribute to the power of family, the story of Alice Hughes. She gestured to the screen. The screen flickered. The music started, a swelling, inspirational string quartet. But the image wasn't the montage of my smiling face. It was a document. It was the Crestline Scholarship, withdrawal confirmation. Status, withdrawn by user. User ID, parent_guardian_access_04. The music continued, upbeat and cheerful, creating a grotesque contrast with the text on the screen. A ripple of confusion went through the crowd. People squinted. Then the image changed. It was the timeline. April 2012. Scholarship sabotaged. September 2012. Fake email, created by Guardian. October 2012. Predatory loan signed. The room went silent. The kind of silence that sucks the air out of a space. Then the image changed again. It was the ledger page. David Hughes. Meriton referral credit equals $5,000. Note. Independence narrative approved. The silence broke. A gasp. Then a murmur. Then a roar. I looked down at the front row. My mother had her hands over her mouth. She was staring at the screen, her eyes wide, unblinking. She looked like she was shrinking, collapsing in on herself like a dying star. My father was not looking at the screen. He was looking at the crowd. His jaw was set, his eyes darting left and right. He wasn't ashamed. He was calculating. He was looking for the exit. He was wondering if he could blame a hacker. He was wondering if he could sue me. Keep playing it. I told Evan, it is looping. Evan said, it is locked in. On the screen, the waveform of Graham Pell's voice appeared. The audio played over the speakers, drowning out the string quartet. $10,000? For your time? We wouldn't want to tarnish the work we do over a paperwork error. Graham Pell, standing by the stage, looked up at the booth. His face was a mask of pure hatred. Celine Ward stood at the podium. She didn't move. She didn't try to stop it. She simply closed her eyes, knowing the ship had hit the iceberg and there were no lifeboats. People were standing up now. Phones were out. Flashes were going off. A man in the second row, a major donor, I recognized him from the papers, was shouting at the stage, "Is this true?" Another woman was crying. Security was pounding on the door of the AV booth. "Open up! Open this door! Let them in!" I said to Evan. Evan unlocked the door. The guards burst in. "Turn it off." "It is done," I said. "You can turn it off, but you can't unshow it." We walked out of the booth. The guards grabbed our arms, but they didn't rough us up. They were confused. They knew something bad had happened, but they weren't sure who the bad guys were anymore. They marched us down the stairs and out the side exit, into the cool night air. The police were already there. Blue lights flashed against the limestone walls. Cutting through the darkness, they weren't there to arrest me. They were there because someone, probably Graham, had called in a cyber attack. An officer approached us. He looked tired. "You two causing the disturbance?" he asked. "We are the disturbance," I said. "The director says you hacked their system." The officer said. "We played a video," Evan said. "Is that a crime?" "Depends on what was in the video," the officer said. "Evidence," I said. "I have copies for you." "Officer." "And for the fraud division." I reached into my bag and handed him the manila folder, the physical backup. He took it. He looked at the gala entrance, where donors were streaming out, looking shocked and angry. He looked at me. "Wait here," he said. We stood by the loading dock. 10 minutes later, the side door opened. My parents walked out. They stopped when they saw us. My mother was leaning heavily on my father. Her makeup was streaked. She looked old. For the first time in my life, I saw her not as a force of nature, but as a frightened woman who had followed a weak man into a deep hole. My father stood straight. He adjusted his cufflinks. He looked at me with cold, hard eyes. "You happy?" he asked. "You destroyed the family. For what?" "There was no family." I said, "There was just a business, and you went bankrupt. You are ungrateful." He spat. "After everything we did, everything you did." I corrected, "To yourself." He started to say something else, but the officer stepped forward. "Mr. Hughes?" the officer said. "I need to ask you a few questions regarding a complaint filed by your daughter, and about some financial records found in your possession." My father looked at the officer, then he looked at the flashing lights, for a second. I saw the fear, the real fear, the realization that the country club couldn't save him this time. "I want a lawyer," he said. "That would be wise." The officer said. My mother looked at Evan. "Evan," she whispered, "please, drive us home." Evan looked at her. He looked at the car keys in his hand. "I can't," he said. I took a cab here. It was a lie. I knew he had driven, but it was a beautiful lie. Evan, she cried. Goodbye. Mom, Evan said. He turned his back on them. We walked away. We walked past the police cars, past the stunned donors waiting for their valets, past the beautiful limestone fortress that was crumbling from the inside out. Tessa was waiting for us by my Honda Civic. She was smoking a cigarette, still wearing the caterer's uniform. Nice show, she said. I like the part with the graph. Thanks for the distraction. I said, I charged the champagne to Graham Pell's tab. She said, grinning. We stood there for a moment, the three of us, the survivors. The night air was cold, but it felt clean. It felt like oxygen. What now? Evan asked. He looked at me. What do you want now? Alice? I looked back at the gala. I could hear the sirens of more police cars approaching. I knew what was coming. The depositions, the investigations, the messy, public dismantling of the Briarwood Foundation. It wouldn't be quick. It wouldn't be pretty. But my name was mine again. My history was mine again. I took a deep breath. I want a burger, I said, and I want to pay for it myself. Evan laughed. It was a shaky sound, but it was real. I know a place, Tessa said. We got into the car. I started the engine. It rumbled to life, loud and unrefined. I put it in gear and drove away from the lights, into the dark, open road. I was 31 years old. I had debt. I had scars. I had no parents. But for the first time in my life, I was truly, finally, independent. Thank you for listening to My Parents Said I Should Be Independent and Refused to Pay for My College, 9 years later. This was a story about the heavy price of secrets and the true definition of independence. I would love to know where you are listening from today. Are you tuning in from the rainy Pacific Northwest or somewhere with a little more sunshine? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more tales of betrayal, justice, and family drama, please make sure to subscribe to Revenge Stories. And finally, I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think Alice did the right thing by exposing her parents publicly, or should she have walked away? Share your opinion in English in the comments. I read every single one. Until next time.